headlines in the last 7 days. Joining me tonight is Greg Vercuzzi, a journalist from Bloomberg News. Marcus Mabry from the International Herald Tribune, normally based in London, but for some reason he seems to be here in Paris for some time, but we're very grateful that he is. Alberto Romanogli, the Paris correspondent for Italy's Rai Television, and John Keating, the Paris bureau chief for the Kuwait News Agency. Like nervous parents waiting to hear news from a child sent off to summer camp, NASA scientists this week have been poring over pictures sent back to them from its science rover Curiosity. The nuclear-powered vehicle landed on Mars last Sunday. One of the many picture postcards sent back also included the inevitable self-portrait, which makes one tempted to ask whether he took his iPhone with him. Anyway, there's much joy among NASA staff as Curiosity made its spectacular descent to the surface of Mars. Let's just take a listen to them as they see that death-defying descent occur. Looks like, no, we're not. Here we go. Yes. Big excitement, big excitement.
Time to see where Curiosity will take us.
Curiosity is ushering in a new era of exploration that could turn up evidence that the red planet once had the necessary ingredients for life, or might even still harbour life today. And just as importantly, it's given a much-needed morale boost to those rather depressed NASA scientists. And I understand that, as one NASA scientist put it, Greg, we've got back our mojo. Do you think America is still ahead in the space race?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they probably are the only country that could still do that kind of an operation. But I don't think they did it alone. I think there are a fair number of parts in this machine that came from other countries in Europe. So I mean, it's always. I don't think we're in this sort of a space race. It's not 1969 where it's where we have every step of the way we have to measure ourselves against the Russians. I think all the space programs of different countries all work on these things together. But yeah, the U.S. probably does have a technological lead still in this kind of thing.
Marcus, you can understand why those NASA scientists responded the way they did. I mean, they don't often get moments like that, do they?
No, this is an amazing scientific achievement. It's phenomenal to take a vehicle this size, and that was really amazing about it, because there have been other smaller vehicles on Mars before. But a vehicle this size and landed on Mars, never landed this way before, was extraordinary. And the fact that they pulled it off is great. And it was. I understand why they say they've gotten their mojo back. It's wonderful that they feel that way. They've been in this kind of, as you said, this kind of depressing funk, because it hasn't been clear that, in the age of manned space exploration, the end of the space shuttle program, where we sent human beings with heartbeats up there into space and they came home, that's over now. We don't have the budget for it. The U.S. doesn't have the stomach for it. That's a real depressing thought for these scientists. So to break another scientific frontier this way is very fulfilling for them. I'm not quite sure where it'll lead. No one knows yet, but it's exciting. It's an exciting milestone. It's funny because I think many of us still, the idea of manned space flight kind of fires the imagination in a way that, these beautiful, spectacular images don't fire the imagination. And so I wonder if there still is not something that's been lost with the end of manned space flight.
John, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a great operation. I think we have to keep going towards the frontiers. Some people might question the price tag on that module, $2.5 billion.
It's a lot of money at a time.
It's a lot of money, but we can't stop. We've always gone forward. We've always gone towards adventure, investigation. Curiosity is right where we are. And I think that France's role in this should not be neglected. France has a huge role in this whole program. They developed the CAM, which is on the mast of Curiosity, which can analyze soil and rock samples from 9 meters, and then they have another arm that can retrieve them. And then it was the CEA and the CNRS all worked on this, and they developed 2 super filters which are capable of analyzing this to detect if there could have been water or even life on Mars. So this is a joint effort. It's a cooperative effort.
But it's interesting that it's been sort of sold as a NASA.
No, not at all. And the French and NASA, the French operating center in Toulouse and NASA are operating jointly in a sort of a joint operation of this.
And some of the chips in the thing were made in Italy. Were made near Turin, I believe. Yeah. So I mean, and I'm sure there are plenty of other countries that are involved too.
Just reading the American media, though, you wouldn't know it.
That is true.
It's very much.
NASA made the car, but all of the bits and pieces and big part of the engine came from France and from Italy and from other countries. So it's.
So I'm saying, it's not 1969 where it's us against them. I think everyone knows they've got to pool resources
There are no budgets
in order
for
to do
this
this
anymore.
stuff.
It is interesting, but I wonder what the position would be in Beijing. I wonder what the perspective would be in Beijing. It's true we're not in a kind of binary space race anymore, but I wonder if in China, where they do want to advance and have their own advances that are not international advances, I wonder if they see it in that way, or if they see this as another kind of threat, because they see much of this Western advance as kind of threats against China.
And certainly, as they see Curiosity pick up those rocks, they must be thinking, what sort of mineral resources are up there? One can imagine.
Well, especially as Mars is the red planet, they probably think they've got a.
The thing is, it can't be 2012 without the rover having its own Twitter account, and which apparently has nearly 1 million followers, and there you can see. But it also can't be complete without having its own parody. And I think we're about to see Sarcastic Rover, who has been tweeting as well in the voice of the rover, saying things such as, "Oh my God, I suddenly understand the meaning of David Bowie's song Life on Mars. It's about the sad longing of modern isolation. I miss you." Alberto, seriously, do you think that this rover expedition is going to add great value to the future of mankind?
No, no doubt this is an interesting value, but the emotion is different. We've spoken about 69. I was a kid at the time, and I was one of the thousands of kids that wake up during the night by their parents. I think that for my kids, watching the pictures, computer graphic and so on is not the same emotion, and so that's a problem of explaining to the public opinion why you spend so much money. 40 years ago, there was no doubt. Everybody was thinking it's incredible that you can send somebody, a man over the moon, and he can come back. And so, yes, it was Cold War, okay, but it was a real dream. Today is such something for technicians, even if there is
and bean counters, given that people keep talking about the cost as well.
Yeah, but it's as old as man. I think that inside the car there is a picture of Leonardo da Vinci that was got from an Italian museum, and but without human beings on the car is not working.
Because we're blasé for technology now. We're not impressed by rockets and stuff like that. We've had so many of them. We've a commuter system going to a space station. People just don't take it the same way anymore.
Okay, well, finally, with the Olympics wrapping up this weekend, what is going to be the defining element of these London Games? Now, for me, despite the extraordinary sporting achievements, such as American swimmer Michael Phelps becoming the most decorated Olympian, or Jamaican athlete Usain Bolt's sparkling 9.63 result in the 100-metre sprint, is that we seem to have lost the art of being a graceful loser. Now, I can say this as an Australian, having watched one too many of my compatriots behaving like a sore loser in the pool. But the athletes are perhaps not the only ones guilty of such behaviour. Let's take a look at this exchange between a French reporter and UK Prime Minister David Cameron over the stunning performance by Britain's cycling team.
I think it's very unfair, just because athletes win, to somehow then have suspicions. The first reaction should be to say, well done, to say congratulations.
There is no cheating. How can you guarantee that?
Look, I know it's difficult with France being such a great cycling nation, but we've done very well. And if France did well in the cycling, I'd say well done, and I'm sure that French people will feel the same. But I think I'm right about the wheels. I heard of this last night.
Yeah.
So they're round, and they go very fast because they pedal hard.
Thank you.
Not at all. Nice to see you.
Greg, nothing like a little bit of joking between two former foes. But do you think that we've lost the art of being a
Oh,
loser?
I didn't think that was that shocking. I mean, whenever any country suddenly bursts onto the scene, the way the British did in track cycling 4 years ago, not this year, they burst onto the scene 4 years ago. There's always suspicions. I mean, when the Chinese burst onto the scene in swimming, there were suspicions back then. You know, when there were numerous American athletes who suddenly greatly improved their sprinting records back. You know, I'm talking more back like in the Seoul Olympics. You know, there was a fair amount of suspicion then too. So I didn't.
In both those cases, the Chinese and the Americans.
The Chinese and the Americans were actually caught in the end,
cheating.
so there was cheating. So I'm not saying that about the British in track cycling, but I didn't find that terribly shocking. No.
What was your most memorable event from these
I'm
games?
going to be totally unoriginal and say it's Usain Bolt, just because of just how easy he makes it look. You know, here's a guy who runs the 200. 10 meters before the end, he looks around and realizes he's way ahead and kind of slows down. And slows down. This guy slows down before the finish line, and you say, don't you want to keep going and break the record? And you realize, no, he's got the record. He doesn't care. I just think that he's so amazing in how in just how languid he is winning these things. And I, okay, so since we've raised drugs, in his case, he doesn't have the body of someone who takes steroids, and EPO is not going to help you in running 200 meters. So I don't think so. I hope he's clean.
Alberto, what about you?
We have a big story about this in Italy, because we have a former gold medal in Beijing that was controlled and couldn't run in London because it came out that he was taking illegal drugs, and he made a press conference in Italy, and he was crying, and he was saying, I did so because I was fed up of training. It was too hard for me. Everybody was pushing me you have to be the winner for the second time, and it was too much. I didn't like my sport. So we had a national debate about how much pressure you can put on athletes. I think that is an interesting story.
It is interesting when you say about the national pressure being put on athletes, because you can imagine what's going on back in Australia. I mean, it's a massive crisis over the performance of the swimming team. Do you think these days we've lost sight of what these games are all about?
No, I think that it's interesting it's a kind of control the level of your life, of the life of your country. A week ago, Greg was saying that the list of medals was more or less the same level of wealth and of countries, and I was checking all week long to see if it's true, and we still have some days to see what's happening. I think that for Italy, for example, in a period of crisis, we were watching these games. Hey, we still have human resources. We still have young people that work hard and can do something better.
Well, I have to say the iPhone app for the Australian Olympic team conveniently left off the New Zealanders when they crept ahead of us in the gold medal count. John, what was your memorable event?
I always thought the Olympics was playing to win, and winning was what was important. And when I saw the badminton teams from China, Korea, and Indonesia playing to lose, but hoping to win in a different way, which wasn't honest, I thought that was disgraceful, and I thought they deserved to be kicked out.
Have you been disappointed by the attitudes and behaviour of the athletes?
Not overall, no, not overall. But I mean, I think there are selective countries that winning by whatever means is more important than losing with honour. And I think that's a very bad lesson to be giving to the future people who are going to participate in this. I know we all want to win, we all like to win, but look at the Tour de France. I mean, who believes in anymore? Look at Lance Armstrong, the legend of Lance Armstrong. Is now being cast in doubt. I think it's bad for sports in general.
Yeah, but it's not the Tour de France. Has not affected the popularity of the event, though.
No,
it's not affected the
but
popularity. But
the view of it has. I mean,
yeah.
Well, it's interesting because now the Brits are with these French accusations that the British may have been cheating in the cycling. The Brits really see this as a kind of massive insult and just poor losing on the part of the French, and they really are. That's how the British press is writing about it. We have on IHT Rendezvous, our blog, ihtrendezvous.com, we have a piece about exactly that, and how the British are really kind of making fun of the French and saying...
Yeah, but it's an indictment of how sports have evolved. I mean, you look back in the 50s, guys slogging it up hills in France and really, really pushing themselves and almost dying doing it. And now everybody's trying to pump themselves full of stuff to get up faster.
Big business that gets involved. Marcus, what was your biggest memory from these games?
My favorite memory, and as a Londoner now, my favorite memory of the games was actually how it's transformed our city. It's never been this nice ever before. The British people saying hi to you, which they don't normally do. And my
cynical about it beforehand, weren't they?
Well, absolutely. Well, Londoners weren't too happy that they actually had won the games in the end. But as it turns out, it's been a great success. My favorite memory, though, one I will not forget, is that opening ceremony. It was so bizarre. If you were not British, didn't know British history, you're like, what is going on? What the hell is happening here?
So Anglo-British. These things about, about
The
EastEnders, the
NHS.
NHS, that kid's hospital.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh.
It was not very universal.
In the end, though, because I learned so much after that opening ceremony, the Brits were moved by it. They were touched by it. They were proud of themselves after. That's not a very British thing. It's very French, very American, very Chinese to be proud of yourself. It is not very British. It's seen somewhat unseemly. But they actually took pride in this, in their own history, and they're very proud of what has happened. I could not be more moved for the British, because this was not they've not had the greatest time here on the last few times, economically and politically even. But this was a great time to be British, and I'm very happy for them for that. And number third in the medal count. That's
But
ever
the
happened
Americans
before.
did need a lot of explanation and subtitles, I think, with that opening ceremony.
Oh, we definitely did. Yeah, we need a whole encyclopedia to understand it.
Well, I'm afraid, gentlemen, that's all we have time for. At this point, what I'd like to do is thank my guests, Greg Vercuse, Marcus Mabry, Alberto Romanogni, and John Keating. And that's it for this edition of The World This Week. Stay tuned for more news and headlines coming up very shortly indeed. Thank you very much.